And so, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Menu Combat. I'm here with a special guest. This has been, what, 3 years in the making, technically?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
This is
yeah.
Brainrot Veil. He's writer, director, JRPG connoisseur. Uh, And we're going to be talking about, as opposed to doing our traditional three-act structure for episode, today we want to talk about JRPG monster designs. And he comes from the block of more of SMT, and I think we have a lot of good questions that I think will help us unpack what it means to have like a good, cool looking monster, a well-designed monster, or just something that intrigues us. Uh, and again, welcome to another episode of Menu Combat, the podcast for JRPG fans who like to pause and customize their party. Is there anything you want to start us off with, Brainrot Veil, before
Um,
we get into a couple of the questions? Anything that people need to know about?
uh, I just love JRPGs. I love video games, turn-based supremacy. I'm happy to be here. A long time coming. We here.
Yes, yes. He'll be back on a future Fantasy Star episode. That is the thing I've promised him all this time.
Yeah, Fantasy Stars. Yeah, we got one for that.
We
That's gonna be special.
It's gonna be special. But I guess I want to start off with I think the question that's always at the top of your mind, like what does it mean to have what is the style of monster that you like? Like when you look at a JRPG monster, when you're like, oh, that is speaks to like me. Like what is the style?
I would say beast-like monsters, just because I grew up in the '90s and like growing up in the '90s, monsters were kind of like the like kaiju were kind of just like
Mhm.
really big at that point. So I I like the monsters that are like really large in scale, the huge ones. I also like the ones that aren't so large in scale, but like look really menacing just off of like their nature, I guess you could say. But mainly just beasts like dragons, griffins, drakes, those type like
Okay.
any type of beast, like
Okay.
any combination of a beast. Those are my go-to favorites for
So
monsters for sure.
So anything with like an animal style feature, is there what usually helps you like identify it to be menacing or like dark? Like what are right? Because I'm guessing that that's
Mm,
what you're saying. It's like so what helps you in a design where you're like that is the fierce or beast element that like stands out in the art style for you.
typically the aura, like the aura in the design, you can usually just see like just power emanating off of the beast. So if you have like let me think of something, for example, like Behemoth in Final Fantasy, for example,
Yes.
just it just transcends. I mean, you know how many times Behemoth has been in Final Fantasy, but each time it's just this menacing looking monster with horns, and you just have this world devourer right in front of you. And it's just like it doesn't matter what like I can't remember which Final Fantasy it was in. Could have been four, might have been five, but it was bright green with orange hair.
Yes. Yeah.
It was kind of like it was still bright in those colors that kind of give you like joy, but it was so like just like I'm in fear for my life because this is so bright. I just feel like this is just it's too bright to be good. So it's just
Mhm.
like, and then just the behemoth is just like just such an iconic concept. Just you got behemoth in the Bible that paired
Right.
with the Leviathan. That it's just John saw it in Revelations. It's just like this beast coming out of nowhere with these large horns. That's just like, yeah, it's the end of the world. So it's just I
Yeah.
love the behemoth a lot. Those type where it doesn't have to even it doesn't need a description. Those type of monsters. It's
Oh,
like, let me put this beast in front of you. It doesn't need a description, but you're gonna have a problem with it.
right.
Like,
That it's like you that's what you mean by aura. It's like the minute you look at it, you know that will be a challenge just to how it's presented.
for sure. It's just like this here is gonna be something that's really crazy. Like trying to think of another one that I saw and was like kidding from Monster Hunter. The the unicorn looking one, like
Oh,
it looks like a unicorn, but it has a lion's face and mane, and it like just looks like this unicorn is definitely not harmless. Like I don't want to pet it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like those type of I just love those kind of monsters that just give me a sense of dread when I look at it. Like this is about to be probably one of the toughest fights in game. I love those monsters that just tell me that I'm about to die. So,
I guess interestingly enough, do those designs stand out when the rest of the monster designs aren't like that, or does it really matter like what the surrounding cast of that monster is?
it kind of it kind of does matter. I would say especially it matters when you have a menacing looking monster and the rest of the monsters are kind of like just look like Pokemon or something like Trials of Mana, for
Right,
example.
right, right.
You got some really cute looking monsters, and I'm just like, I don't want to fight this. Like the little rabbits, I don't want to
Yeah,
fight those. They're cute. I want to pet it. But then you run into something and it's like, oh, okay. Like, like I like, all right, this is giving me a totally different vibe from these little rabbits that was running around in the forest that I was just beating up
right,
on to level up. Now I'm really in front of a monster. I'm like, and you have like maybe three, four, maybe five of those huge little
right.
monsters because most of them are humanoids when you fight like the bosses and stuff. But when you get to those, like the creatures of mana, like the ones that were housed in the stones or whatever, it's just like you see them and it's like that you see the evil versions of them and you're just like I don't know why the like real name of it is slipping my brain right now like I didn't just finish playing the game. I cannot remember the name of the beast, but it's like when you have to fight them to get that element, it's like those beasts are like totally different from the
Yes,
rest of the enemies in the game, and it's like the design is still great. It doesn't give you this full like with the themes that come with darkness and evil, like
right.
sharp lines, long flowy hair, and shadows, and like the steam breath. It's just like this kind of looks cute, but it also looks like it's gonna one shot me.
Yes,
Like so, I think when the rest of the monsters aren't as evil looking, I would say,
right.
as the like your bosses, it makes a big difference and it makes you remember because you were just running around fighting little cute things and now you have to run up on this real beast and it's like all right, you might have been playing games with leveling up and now you really have to now you really have to fight for it. Now you about to have a DPS check. You about to have, a HP check.
Yes.
So yeah, man. I love those DPS check monsters, man. They always
Yeah.
make you realize that you didn't grind hard enough. Like, yeah, bro.
No, I mean, the more and more you describe it, like I'll go straight to this question. I mean, we'll obviously talk about you and I both have monster picks that we'll get at, but I'll go
Hmm.
to this question because I think it will get at what I think you appreciate, which is like, what series do we consider to have good or bad monster designs? And I will start with one that I think I struggled when I tried to think of a series. I struggled to think of monster designs, and I was just like, I realized I only really prefer fighting the humanoids and the monsters, and that's
Hmm.
Tales. I'm playing Tales of Berseria,
Okay.
and I'm like, I don't really care for any of the monster designs. They kind of all
You
glaze
know,
over to me a lot of the time.
I felt the same way about that game when I was playing it. And it honestly it was something that took me a minute to get past. And it's something that hindered me from finishing the game. And then, but when I got to the point where I was like, I love this game, it was
Yeah,
just like, but I just had to get past the fact that I'm just so underwhelmed with some of those designs. It was just like,
yeah.
I guess, like you could have put this somewhere else.
There are a lot of monsters that just feel like stock experiences.
Hmm.
And I don't try to besmirch because I'm like, I can't draw, I can't do any of that. And it's hard to make something that stands out. But when I started trying to think of like what series have great monster designs, I was like, a good example of one that I think struggles to have one is Tails. But on the other hand, and rest in peace, Akira Toriyama, the one of the monster designs that I think I warmed up to because I wasn't into them at first is Dragon Quest. The more and more I look at the Dragon Quest monsters, I'm just like, they just have so much charm that just exude.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
and to lean into your point earlier, where it's like if you have a lot of charm and so forth, if you throw in like something that's more menacing, the menacing one stands out. And so when I think of something like
yeah,
Dragon Quest One, when you face the I guess Dark Lord, and it's like, oh, everything is different from the Dark Lord, and Dark Lord stands out as a memorable character now. But yeah, that was one of my favorite series. So I'm like, an example of a series you don't like with monster designs, and an example of a series that you do like.
um, Kingdom Hearts has some of my favorite
Mm,
monsters, even though they're not that frequent. And it's almost like the same thing with Dragon Quest. Like those, the Heartless have charm to them. Like
yeah.
some of them are cute, some of them are fluffy looking, some of them might look like a little pillow. And then you got Dark Thorn Heartless. That's just like I'm you know what I'm saying? It just and then it comes from something else that's grotesque looking. Like it comes from this. You got the ball, the Shadow Stalker, and then the Dark Thorn comes like it's like you're fighting a Shadow Stalker, and it's like, oh, this floating head with horns. Ah, you know you're not really. And then Dark Thorn comes through, and you're like second phase, I guess. Like
Mm.
it's really crazy, bro. It's just I had so much. Yeah, I wasted a lot of potions on Dark Thorn. Like my older cousin was helping me with a lot of the bosses in Kingdom Hearts, especially Kingdom Hearts 2. Um, I was young at the time, so like maybe 12. Like I had been playing JRPGs with him, but I've been playing like I just love the designs and I hadn't really been playing to like get good at games. I had just been playing and Kingdom Hearts was like one of the first games I was like, I gotta get good at video games. That's not
Mhm.
Tony Hawk. So
Right.
like got to the Dark Thorn. It was the first boss that I beat without his help. So that like the Dark Thorn it holds a lot of sentimental value to me. I just really love that. And the design is sick. Like it's almost like a baby behemoth.
Oh.
Nah. I would say it's more so like I guess you could say baby behemoth. It's just like just with his style, like just the aura that it gives off. It doesn't, I mean, of course it's a monster, it doesn't speak, but it doesn't really even roar or anything. It's just, it makes noises, battle cries and stuff, but it's not like it pops out and then it gives this long drawn out speech. I'm the strongest, I'm the best. It just whoops you. That's it. Just pops up and it whoops on you. And you're just like, oh, okay, like get good. So that was just, I love Dark Thorn a lot. Um, I'm trying to think of some bad monster designs that's not because the one I had was also Tales of Berseria because it's just like yeah, I just wasn't feeling it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I might have felt the same way about. Nah, not to be honest, because like monsters are unique, and I also understand sometimes you have your stock monsters, your filler monsters,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, and you just got to put some monsters somewhere just so
Yeah.
people have something to do. Like, but it's just sometimes it feels lazy at some points, and it's a lot of I feel like a lot of games have lazy monster designs in them, but they make up for it with
Right.
the good looking ones. But I don't. You got Pokemon. It's like a lot of people don't consider Pokemon to be monsters, but I mean they are essentially 100%. So you have just the wide range.
Yeah.
It's one out there for every. It's just so you can pick and choose so many different generations of Pokemon, and I feel like Pokemon is probably one of the best and most consistent monster like
Yes.
designs of
It,
all time.
I think for all the controversy Pokemon has had on and off for the years, I think the thing I've come to the conclusion of is that the reason why it's still around, it's because those designs are good, but as you get, they're always diverse. They don't only feed
Yep.
one set of people. They find a way. They're the folks who love Charizard. They're the folks who like something more derpy, like Dunsparce. They always
Right.
find a way to make sure the different tastes are filled and they get a variety, right? I it's why when I look at other things that are trying to compete with Pokemon, sometimes I'm just like, man, these monsters are cool, but they ain't. And I also know that sometimes it's familiarity. Familiarity gives you that, but
Hmm.
I think so much about how that is. But I also think, and I think this will lead into the other conversation, was like Pokemon finds a way to sell you on a monster in multiple ways, right? Like when I think of things that sell you on like designs, I think about like story impact, I think about like how you fight it, general
Hmm.
interactions, lore, design, and idle animations. And the first thing I thought of with Pokemon, it's funny because I've only played the game later, is when you get that red Gyarados. When you get that
Uh,
red Gyarados,
yeah.
that's an iconic moment. They feed you a shine,
Yeah.
they make it a whole build up to you getting it, and it feels special. And so like
Hmm.
I don't know if you finished your, because that is gold and silver. I don't know if you finished your gold and silver with your red Gyarados. Did you?
No, I actually did not. I did
Really?
not finish it with the red Gyarados. I
That's
did
it.
not finish it. I didn't finish the game. So
Oh,
I'm going to admit that right now. So I'm going to have to spin the block on that one. Yeah,
y-
just reminded me. I never finished that. No, I never did.
yeah. I played it much later, and so I ran it
Okay.
because I'm not a Gyarados fan. Like I would never say it's one of my
Oh yeah,
favorites,
nah.
but
It looks cool, but it's just like a glass cannon. Like it
yeah,
kind of sucks, but it looks cool. Like it looks really good, but
yeah.
phew,
But
it
but
could
it's it speaks to what like introduction into a story can sell you on a design that you may not
yep.
already be interested in. And I was like, I guess starting with there, are there any monsters that just off of the strength of how it's introduced in the story that stand out to you, where you're like, I wouldn't have liked it without this introduction.
Yeah, so um I'm gonna go ahead and just jump to
Go for it.
the Lamu from
Yes.
SMT5 Vengeance. So I wouldn't have liked Lamu because he's just a weird, he doesn't look cool, but he's just so disgusting. Um, a floating head with tentacles popping out of it, kind of has hair, kind of doesn't. It just it's you don't know if the tentacles is hair or if the hair is tentacles, vice versa. But the fact that it just turned somebody, it he's tied into one of the best moments in the game for me. Um, because you have like the girl that was being bullied. What's her name? I know her name.
Uh-huh.
Sahori. So
Those.
Sahori was being bullied, at school and everything, and she's like, I want to get revenge on my bullies. And then you got Lama who just preyed on that. I'll give you what you want. We can get this revenge going on. You know what I'm saying? And we get them out the way. So, you know, she gets her revenge on her bullies, but at the same time, she also goes on a killing spree and she kills students. You
Mhm.
know, she kills her best friend, like
Wow.
in the fight. So it's like you're sitting here feeling sympathy, not even sympathetic. You have empathy for Sahori because she wanted she just wanted to stop being bullied and was being preyed upon and taken advantage of, and there's no redemption for her because she killed innocent people. And that's what really latched on to me the most. And it just gets really kind of like Lamu is sick, like he was lusting after Sahori, and he's just like these tentacles, and it's just really disgusting knowing what tentacles and young schoolgirls in Japanese,
Right.
I don't want to get into it, but he just like forcing himself upon her, but it's not in a sexual manner. It's in a manner of, it's her emotions. And I really like the way that they played on that and didn't make it a sexual thing. They made it a grief thing. Like they
Ooh.
made it like I want my bullies to go away. Like I don't, what's wrong with me? And here comes Llama. Ain't nothing wrong with you, girl. Let's go. I got you. So, and
Mm.
then next thing you know, she's killing people, killing angels. She gets kidnapped, taken to the netherworld. He breaks the barrier because he's like, let's make everybody, let's plunge this into chaos. And that just makes it go, well, let me not say makes it go. That just ramps up my, my interest in Lamu even more. So now I'm like, let me see what Lamu is. And then now I'm looking at the fact that he's a Mesopotamian god of
Mm.
primordial energy and chaos. So he wants to come reap this chaos and sow this chaos. And he has these attacks that are elemental based. And Lamu in Mesopotamian, lore created landscapes of the earth. And what do you need for that? Rock,
Right.
lightning, just you have these various things that are elements of
Oh.
primordial nature that are a part of his abilities. And then on top of that, he was the hardest boss in the game for me.
Mm.
Um, I don't even want to admit to how long it took me to beat him, but he has like these terrible phases that just get worse. And it gets to the point where you need certain party members in order to fare in this boss fight. And if you have anything that's weak to dark
Yeah.
damage, you're pretty much screwed. So you just have to kind of balance it. And the whole fight was really, really hard. Just a test of endurance, a test of how well can your party mitigate debuffs? Do
Mm.
you have any buffs to counteract those debuffs? Or do you have any debuffs to put on the enemy or whatever, and he's only weak to fire and is in the second phase, and he's not weak to light and force anymore. So you can't, so that's not even an option anymore in the
Right.
second phase.
That's
And you beat him, and you you think that Sahori is back, but it's not. It's actually him because he merged with her, and him merging with her, it like he becomes her because his will is so much stronger than hers, and she
right.
allowed him to take her over. So he's basically in control of her, and he's just like parade around,
Right.
ha ha ha. It's me. I'm in her body. What y'all gonna do? I'm about to go take the throne of the creator. I mean, throne of creation, and I'm about to recreate this whole entire shindig.
That
And
that's
she
in.
has to die. Sahori has to die, and it ends with a very bleak scene of her being killed by somebody who has feelings for her, somebody who loves her, somebody who cares about her. And it's no hope. The music cuts out, it fades out, and she just turns into little particles, and it just she disappears. She dies with the embrace of a hug and a stab to the gut. So you're sitting there like there's no redemption for Sahori. And the best moment in it was the best moment in the game for me. The game had some SMT5 had some ups and downs, but that moment right there was just like,
That cemented it for you.
I got you. Yeah. And
It
Llama was just disgusting.
it's so interesting because when you list out all the stuff with Lamu, you kind of hit on its impact on the story, you impact on how you fight it, you impact on the lore, and just like how the design gets enhanced by what it is. And so like you knocked
Hmm.
out so many of these things. But I would love for you because you were mentioning before we even started recording, and I've noticed it when we had the conversations even online that like lore in monster designs do a lot for you, and in particular
Hmm.
SMT series tends to be pretty good at incorporating lore into design. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that. Like what, because I would say they're probably the best at incorporating that from what I don't.
Yeah. They're personally SMT is personally my favorite just when it comes to monsters, period, just of
Right.
all time, just because of those like real world implications that some of these monsters do have. Um, a lot of these monsters have real life counterparts, that they use for inspiration. They don't completely rip them off,
Yeah.
but those aspects that they have in the like in mythology or in religion are still there. Like you have Susanoo, you know, other Shinto gods, and then those things tie back into Japan being in chaos and those deities overseeing Japan, and they're supposed to, just basically restore Japan to order and those type of things. And then you have your biblical angels and demons, and the entire series is biblical.
Right.
And you have just this influence of gods and outer gods and demons, lesser gods, demigods, and all of these things just coexist. And it brings you back to this idea of primordial earth, where you would have had, if all of these, if you believe everything to be true as far as mythology and the Bible and any other religious text, if you believe all of them to be true, because some of these things were like, some of these texts and like happenings were going on during the same time in this time frame. So there would have been a time on earth where all of these different religions and deities and monsters and all of these different ideas would have had to coexist as one in one area.
Mm.
And I feel like SMT does that very well, because you have God of Law
Mm.
that represents, the high, just the top. And we all know from the Bible and just other Abrahamic religions that God is a jealous God. Why are these other deities here? That's when you start having these deities banished to the netherworld or other realms of reality
Right.
and nowhere near throne of creation. And then you have other aspects like other theories that it tugs on, like, is God even still here anymore?
Right.
And then you get into some points of SMT where you find out that God is dead and no longer exists. And you have an angel that's been lying to the people about it to keep
Right.
order. So now it's like he's dead. We out of here. Like, so it's just, I just love how it's always something in the real world, ancient history, modern history, or something, and it's just like, yeah, we know about that too. And it's just like,
Mm.
how do you bring all of these different cultures and
Yeah.
religions into one game and make it work well? But you just have a free for all.
Right. That,
And if you were in primordial earth at these times where these deities were claimed to have existed, it would have definitely been a free for all. Because you have some texts that talk about how these deities were deemed heretical in the eyes of, even in the Bible, like a lot of the civilizations that God punished and destroyed, especially Babylon, which Lamu comes from, Mesopotamia and all of that, Sumerian and all of that stuff, is like, you it just starts to make sense.
it,
I feel like I'm rambling, but it really starts to make sense when you look at it from the aspect of just, what if every religion
right.
and all mythologies across history existed at the same time in the modern day and age? What would that look like? And then I feel like you get SMT.
I think that is something I've vastly like that synthesis work
Hmm.
to try to make all of these things make sense in the same space. And then obviously, I think you've even alluded to earlier, is like part of the meta commentary is also like a Japanese society as well, like low key.
Hmm.
It's you're doing all the spiritual work, you're doing all the synthesis of other cultures, and you're doing this whole like slight conversation about Japan in the background of it all.
Yep.
That is a lot for one series to really do. And now it makes very clear sense of like
Hmm.
how much work they put into their designs because of all of these things they're trying to represent.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fact that they still make all of these different entities unique. And it's just like,
Yes.
they don't even look like they're, like Lamu in Mesopotamian mythology looks like a man, got, hair. and you have a floating head in this game with tentacles coming out of the eyes, and Satan looks just like a man, and in SMT is just this grotesque looking,
Right.
like you and like you think of Satan and then you see it in the game, you're like, that's Satan, but it's still cool. It's like, okay. And it's yeah, that game is something else, man. That series is something else. That series, they know what they're doing when it comes to just when it comes to design, incorporating lore into design and history.
Yes.
So they have a lot of that just working in tandem, just going and it's going and it's just going. And I think the best example of that might be three.
Three.
Three did very well with three did very well with his monsters. It was a great story too, I believe. But SMT5 just
What?
it was dark.
Right. I think one of the challenges I have with SMT for me, I've only played a little bit of three, but I have behind me, is that, and it's weird, right? Because I think it fits thematically with the game, but it makes it challenging for me, is that both SMT and Persona both encourage you to dispose of your monsters so quickly, right? Like you get one
Hmm.
recruited, added to your team, but in order to really make any sincere progress, you have to be willing to fuse, get rid of,
Yep.
and that's such a weird disposition to have towards creatures. And because I was like, in comparison to other games where you keep the monster for the entire journey, I
Hmm.
don't, outside of think in SMT3, if you keep the original fairy throughout all of the fusions, if you have the original fairy still in your party, you unlock the true ending, if I remember correctly. But
Hmm.
outside of that, I think the game usually is punishing you if you get too attached to an assortment of demons. It's usually asking you, hey, rotate out. And
Yeah.
it's such an interesting dichotomy because it's like on one hand, it's such a rich series with such great great designs, but I also feel like it asks you mechanically not to get too attached.
Basically. And it's like if you do get too attached, you're not gonna progress past certain areas.
Yeah.
It's like it's people like to say like it's dark Pokemon, but it's really not. It's just like Pokemon encourages you to collect.
Right.
Just collect, collect, collect. You can level them up, and it doesn't matter. It's strong. Like just collect it. If this is your favorite if Clefairy is your favorite,
Right.
so be it. Keep it in the party.
Yeah.
Level it up as much as you want to. It'll be strong. And SMT is like, yeah, no, that monster doesn't go past this. You
Right.
have to do something else.
Right.
So it just I feel like it keeps it fresh for it.
Yes.
It allows you to interact with more than one monster. It hinders you can still have a favorite,
Right.
but your favorite might be useless once you get past a certain part.
Yes.
Or you might not even be able to get your favorite until you get to a certain part and fuse or whatever the case may be. But that's very interesting. I didn't really think about it like that. They do encourage you to just like try something else.
Yeah. It, as I said, it's like I think it feels thematically in the game where like everything is hostile, so you should have like a
Yeah.
disposition that's not about affection, but a disposition of like do what it takes to survive in this kind of
Yep.
apocalyptic experience. But it's like for such great monster designs, you do run through them quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that I had to get used to with it because it's like I do like some monsters that I just can't. But it was the design
Yeah.
philosophy they had for it. So you just run with
Yeah.
it and you
Oh
just
yeah.
do your best.
That's exactly it. Which one of the things I'm curious about, because I don't think of any SMT examples. I'm thinking of another thing that sells us some monsters. I think about like monster idle animations, where they're like
Mm,
when you're especially I guess more in turn-based combats, where you're like you're waiting to select a move and they do a small thing, and that kind of like gives you some like element of charm. I one of my favorites is the calamari kid from Dragon Quest XI, where you meet them on the beach and then they're just like drawing in the sand while you wait to select what it is. And it's just like
Oh,
totally charming of like, you're about to beat these in one hit. But if you're taking your time, you'll see them just like trying to relax.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
what's neat in I think in 11, sometimes they do their idle animations just while they're on screen. And so
Mhm.
I always think of like that's another way that beyond just the design, what they're doing in the environment can like win you over. Are there any things that come to mind in that way?
Yeah, yeah. I like when there's monsters that like their idle animations look like they're hovering over or like just towering over the
Yes.
player and they're breathing. And then you
Ooh,
can see the breath comes out and they're just like just hulking over you. I really like that's one of my favorite idle animations. I can't so many that comes to mind that I can't even pick one and think of one, honestly. I'm trying to think of something, but there's just I honestly feel like that adds into the monsters design philosophy as well, their idle
yes.
animations, and just how they interact when you're not doing anything. I just like the thought that goes into some
Yeah.
of these monsters. It just feels real like somebody took their time and it's like you can tell that this monster is somebody's baby
Yes.
when the idle animations kind of fit the monster and it's just like, okay, you don't want to do anything right now, well just look at this monster that I designed, just do something cool and look cool while you're waiting. I'm trying
It,
to think of things. I'm trying not to mention the same monsters, but Behemoth's idle animation is one of my favorites.
mm,
um Kingdom Hearts doesn't really have too many idle animations. They kind of do. Like I guess you could say like when the monster's being introduced, they kind of do these things um where they just like I guess you consider it idle animations, but you know it'll tell you the name of the monster and the screen pans and the monster's doing something
yes.
while the screen is panning. And Kingdom Hearts always has like a few monsters that don't have limbs attached and the limbs just flip. I just really love it when the limbs just flip, like kind of like Rayman. Like they just don't have limbs that attach, but it's just like floating and they're doing this and then the limbs just flip. And I was like,
That's
yeah, yeah,
I
it's
like that
pretty
because
tight, man.
you get into a good one, right? Like I don't typically think of idle animations with action RPGs, but you're right. Like a good pan animation, a good seeing them in the environment, those kind of things
Hmm.
would be the equivalent to what we see in turn-based where they're just, yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
That
man, for sure.
for for sure. And I guess you've given me one example of a monster that you love from SMT, and I'll do the equivalent for Dragon Quest. Or not even Dragon Quest. I mentioned wanted to mention one from Pokemon, right? Because as I said, like
Okay.
me is like the series where I'm like, this has the best designs, and I've been thinking about Farfetch'd. I have always loved the idea of just like Farfetch'd as a monster. It is just adorable, and the idea of a duck holding a leak is
Yeah.
very funny. And so I ended up finding the description on Bulba Garden, Bulba News, because I was like, why is it called Farfetch? Why is it called any of these things? And apparently the idea is this phrase called Kamo ga negi wo shote kuru, which means duck comes bearing green onions, which gets shortened to Kamo negi, which is Farfetch's Japanese katakana name. And the idea is that it would be far-fetched to literally bump into like a chicken or a duck holding its own seasoning. It's
Yeah.
it's
That's
serendipitous, right? Like it is one of those like
hilarious.
right. Like when I heard it phrased like that, I was like, oh, that is such a funny way to explain why that's
You you almost need green onion with duck. It's
yes.
it's the staple when it comes to duck. Like,
Yes.
wow. That's hilarious.
It's
That's
so
crazy.
right. And so it's like every time I think about it, like that is the kind of jokes that I like built into lore. And I love its evolution in God. I think it's in Sword and Shield where they created Surfetched. And Surfetched is an evolved form where it essentially uses the green onions like a metal sword, and so I love it. It's like a pure white knight.
Interesting.
And one of the things I've always liked about Pokemon is the way that they come back to monsters later to kind of give them a different texture or perspective on design.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that only old franchises get the chance to do, where they're like, you've seen this design for so long. Here's the remix. Here's the different take. And
Yeah.
I, a franchise that you and I haven't mentioned much in this episode is Final Fantasy. Like you've mentioned the Behemoths, but I'm like, the best example of like a redesign that I think a lot about is Drat. I totally had it in my brain where uh someone like Gilgamesh, right? Like Gilgamesh is a full
Uh,
design. What he looks like in five and looks like in eight is so drastically change of what that looks like and what that speaks to the game. And I think
hmm.
once you nail a monster design, the ability to come back a decade later and like evolve it in some way is special. I feel like, and maybe you have a better answer for me. I do feel like SMT has kept a very similar design code for most of their iconic monsters. Is that fair to say? Or
Yeah. 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 When it comes to their, especially the monsters that reappear across the games, they
yeah,
typically have the same type of design philosophy. And there's some things might be different, but for the most part, it's when you see it, like when you see certain monsters or certain demons, you're like, okay, that is you don't have they don't have to tell you. You just see the
right.
design and be like, that must be or this must be that. And it's just like, okay, they do that pretty well. Let me think of I feel like them in Pokemon, especially Pokemon, when it comes to like redesigning it, like they gave us Mega Evolutions, and now everybody's like back with the googly eyes, like, what is this Mega Evolution going? What's this one going to look like? Like, what are we even? And then you get introductions. It's like, oh hey, guess what? We got something for you guys, fairy Pokemon,
Right.
or you. They just start introducing new types or making hybrid types, and they
Right.
just find this way to keep you engaged. Or they might add uh what's the nine tails, the ice one.
Oh, the regional
The
or
region when it,
regional variants.
yeah. So they give us things like that, and it's like you have you have a Rapidash that's typically doing fire attacks, and this one can do ice attacks.
Right.
Or you have a the nine tails, or not Rapidash. I'm trying to think of the one that's not nine tails. There's a few of them.
Okay. 'Cause
Mr. Mime.
oh yes.
That one is like I was just like I ended up keep when I was playing Shield, he ended up being a mainstay in my party once I got to a certain point in the game. Like
Right.
it was just like, oh, he's pretty good. And I hate Mr. Mime, just the regular version. Like he sucks to me. But yeah, I
That's
was
I've got you.
and that variation of coughing, the psychic
Yeah.
variation of it with the hat.
Yes.
Like it's like how do you even hey, guess what? Let's give coughing a hat. And it's like, oh, that was kind of genius. I like this. Like, all you got to do is just change the type a little bit, give it some more attacks. And now it's like I'm engaging with a coughing with a hat. I really just all you had is I didn't know it was that easy for me. All they had to do is put a hat on the coughing and I'm sold. Cool. Like, yeah, man. I
Yeah.
love Pokemon, though.
Yeah. No, as I said, it's like it's so cool to see these long-standing series evolve their designs and just like switch things over. And I guess maybe a good question for you is like, is there a series that you with a monster or two where you're like, they need a redesign, they need like an update take, like a different artist needs to take it on, or is there anything like that that comes to mind?
We can go back to Final Fantasy on this. And they actually executed with Final Fantasy 16.
Okay.
Um, Ifrit. I
Oh,
felt like Ifrit was at a point where he just like, I don't care. Ifrit in Final Fantasy 15, I didn't too much like its design because it felt too human
Oh,
and um humanoid. He's humanoid, yes, but he's more of a beast, like a man beast type
right,
humanoid thing. And in 12, he just looked like a deity. I mean, not 12, 15. He just looks like this deity. Just, I'm chilling, bro. Like, why are you here?
right,
Like
right.
he's giving off these Loki vibes. I didn't like it at all. Like, and they give you Ifrit in 16, and it's like we're so back because we got this like flaming chest, molten magma looking like called back from Final Fantasy IV where he was just all red. It's just like, except this time he doesn't have a human face, he has a beast face. And
Mm.
I just feel like perfect. Thank you.
And
Because I did not like that, Loki looking one from 15. 12, I didn't really like. My favorite one is 16 so far,
okay.
coming off of my favorite one being 6, because the little green goblin looking Ifrit from 6, I love that one. But dude, 16 just nailed it.
Okay.
That might be one of my favorite recent monsters, design wise.
Oh,
Lore wise, lore could have been better for it, but it's Final Fantasy. It's like, let me throw this monster in y'all recognize. I don't need to give you no lore. So, it's just like, but
no.
design wise, definitely one of my favorite looking ones because they just, though it looks like a walking volcano with horns.
Okay.
It's just like I'm about to erupt at any moment. I'm not who you want to fight. I
Right.
just love this. I just love this monster design a lot.
Nice. I guess I have to look at the 16 monsters. I haven't paid enough attention, but to know that that was a successful redesign that like
Hmm.
you back over, I mean that speaks to it. I often think about as we have this conversation about like our take anime changes so much, right? In terms of how it's drawn, how it's designed,
Hmm.
like our audience tastes has changed. And I wonder how much that has an effect on more modern series creating iconic designs and what does that mean, right? Because I'm thinking about we talked about Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Pokemon, SMT. These are all guys who've been around since at least the mid 90s at the latest.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And so when I think about designs now from like more modern games, I realize how hard it is for them to like create something entirely new that we haven't seen that stands out
Yeah.
to be, hey, and I've never played the series, so maybe you've played it. Would you know if the Trails series has anything along the lines? Because I know that I feel like that's the more recent popular series, but I don't know any of its monsters off the top of my head to know if they've like contributed in that way.
Um, I haven't played enough. I haven't played enough games, I feel like, to, to come up with an intelligent answer for that. Um, I'm trying to think though, is there if there is anything I can think of as far as like recency goes.
Yeah.
No, it is really because I mean you have just but well, I guess I think that what comes to mind isn't even a JRPG. So I won't even bring it up, but it definitely takes from it draws a lot of inspiration from a lot of JRPGs. I'll say that for sure. But
Okay.
I mean, it's an RPG. It's just not a JRPG. It's not turn-based. But I was talking about Elden. I was thinking of Elden Ring's
That's
monsters. There's some. I'm like, okay, I didn't think of. I didn't think of that. Like,
I was going to say I feel I don't feel I never know what to do with something like the Soul series. I consider it a JRPG, but I understand why or why not we do so. But I was like,
yeah,
that franchise obviously is built on the backs of menacing, oppressive looking, dour monsters. And so I think you pulling up Elden Ring makes a whole ton of sense for that.
yeah. That was. I was kind of skeptical of mentioning it because I just didn't know what it classified as, but it's a RPG. It's a RPG, definitely. I mean, the developers are from Japan, so I guess you can say it's a JRPG, but it just has these enemies and these creatures that you just never even like. There's a well, it's kind of an enemy, but I mean, it's really it's not, but it is, but it holds an item inside of it that's, pretty valuable in the game, but it's basically just a stone monolith with legs and it just walks. And
Oh,
it's like, who thought of this? You bring it down, you gotta, hit weak points on his legs or whatever, and it eventually comes down. You go inside and then
right,
you loot it and you get an item. But it's like, who thought of that?
right.
Who like I can get killed by essentially an area I can access. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Real.
and then their bosses are just they have this one creature that is called Omen. I know you haven't played it, but there's these creatures called Omens in Elden Ring, and their just backstory is just terrible. It's sad. I mean, they were like they weren't the best, but
Right,
once it got to a certain point in the lore's timeline,
right.
they were just their story became sad. But
Oh,
they are just like these big creatures that have these horns growing out of their bodies. And if you cut the horns off, they die, but sometimes they don't. But it's just like one in particular is a boss, and he's a boss of nobility from the Golden Order in the game. Like this whole thing, you can akin it to Christianity, really, when you think of the Golden Order. But he has a horn going into his eye.
mhm.
So it's like it, but he's still fight, he's still moving around, fighting, doing whatever, living life. But it's just like he has to live with being in excruciating pain. Like he has to get used to being in
Uh,
excruciating pain. And I'm like, who thinks of this? Like these monsters are crazy. They have a monster that's like a hand with 12 fingers on it. And it just flicks you and attacks you and it runs at you and it's annoying to fight. They have all of these monsters that are so annoying to fight, from giant ants to like living tree men. You
right.
just I don't know, what type of psychedelics they were doing to come up with that, but it's very hard to come up with like new monsters now. And
Yeah.
I'll expect JRPGs have a tendency to just be like, let's get our bread and butter and let's call it a day.
Yes.
So it's just I don't know, but SMT has enough unique looking monsters to where it's their bread and butter to go a certain direction, but it's like, how is this monster going to look in this game versus this game?
Right.
Or, what's the implications behind this monster in this universe and in real life or something like that. It's not that many games I feel like that have just nailed new monster designs like that.
Yeah.
Just in general, like I think. But I mean, games have been out for how
Right.
long? So it's almost getting to the point where you kind of just have to like design the best type
Right.
that people know of. So it's
Right.
like let me design the best dragon, let me design the best ghoul, let me design the best ghost demon, or whatever the case may be, or let me make this god look
That's
like this. And it's just, I feel like right now that's what we got. Well, no, no, you know what? Monster Hunter actually.
this that's I want to bring on, so I don't have a lot of Monster Hunter. That's a franchise I think for this conversation
Hmm.
there's a lot here to even add because they have something I don't even think any of the games that we've talked about are is like they have monsters embedded in environments fully.
Yes, it's like the thought that goes with, man, Monster Hunter. I can't even believe I didn't think about that. Monster Hunter just puts you in these different landscapes that just, you might be in a desert, you might be somewhere it's snowy, or you might be somewhere it's kind of volcanic. And it's like, if you want to go to, let me change that. If you want to find a monster that's formidable that you can farm and get some good armor weapons from, you have to kind of go to a dangerous looking place. And I
Right.
like how Monster Hunter kind of nails that on the head. You have oh man, what are those the jeez. It dropped one of my favorite um armor sets in just Monster Hunter history. I want to say I don't think it's the Gorgon. I
I get,
cannot remember the name of this monster, but it's just been so long since I played Monster Hunter.
but
Um,
I want to nail this because you said it both for Elden Ring and you bring it up with Monster Hunter. The last thing that makes a monster memorable is what it can give you. That
yeah.
is because I don't know what you said the Elden Ring one gives you, but I'm like, you mentioned the armor sets with Monster Hunter. When I think of something like this, the Metal Slimes Dragon Quest is that it gives you all this extra HP, right? That's such another excellent way where to make a design feel important because now you start looking for that monster differently because you know what it will give you. It gives you a very different eye.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And then when you like just have to farm it
Yes.
to win like multiple times, like or it's a rare drop or things like that, and you just have
Yes.
to farm this monster, becomes it becomes more rewarding when you finally get what you're looking for because you had to farm. And especially when it's like you have to farm certain parts of you attack certain areas of these monsters and you sever limbs from
Yes.
them and things like that, and it makes the experience that much better. I'm guessing I didn't think about Monster Hunter because of the fact that it's not turn based.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about it in the JRPG aspect. It's more so like an action adventure game, but
Right.
they do nail that pretty well when it comes to monster design. The monsters being tied to their environment. I'm really trying to find out the name of this monster. I know it starts with a G, but it gives you this armor set that is like akin to samurai. It looks
Oh,
like samurai armor. It's red. I cannot remember the name of. I'm trying to find. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
no, go for it. Go for it,
I
man.
know it starts with a G.
Oh, yeah, there's something to be said for like really your monsters affecting what you wear, what you equip, all of that. Because I'm like, even in Berseria, as much as I'm not feeling it as much yet, the monsters, beating certain monsters give you certain items, and certain items can use to be disassemble weapons and then reassemble other weapons. And just like the small details to upgrade and downgrade your weaponry with the monster, I guess, features.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I cannot find this for the life of me. But yeah, a lot of my favorite monsters give me something
Yeah.
that I like a lot in the game. So except for a few, but I usually base a monster's value off of what it can give you.
Mm,
Because we're playing a game. Everybody loves loot.
yes.
Everybody loves loot in a game. Come here, girl. Sorry, I'm talking to my dog. But yeah, man.
Yeah.
Loot is the driving force behind people playing games for the most part. Like, what can I get out of this game?
I don't know. That might be the Destiny brain talking.
Hey, I think so, man. Looter shooter brain going on right now. Yeah, definitely.
Uh, and so I think we did. I think this is a good start to kind of get folks to talk about their future favorite monsters, all these elements. And so what I want to close with, because I'm like, it's not a menu combat episode if we don't talk a little bit of music. I think you and I are both going to pull songs from the same soundtrack. And so I was
Okay.
listening to the listening to not the Vengeance soundtrack, but SMT5 soundtrack, and they have this song called Knowledge is in Control. And this just emptiness of a feeling of a desolate wasteland, the dark chord piano that's like slowly building over time. Like it starts very small and then gradually increases. The way that the eerie strings come on top. And then there becomes this like heavy melody that evolves. And so it changes what feels like is this desolate place to like something kind of pulling you. Like I always imagine when I listen to the song, I'm like imagining being in a place and you just hear something and you're like drawn, like almost inhumanly drawn to it, right? Like the way that people talk about sirens, like the minute you hear it, you're just gone in that direction. And so I just always imagine like being and walking towards that sound as it grows, as you kind of begin to unearth like this creepy thing, like mystery. And
Hmm.
I was like, man, that's just a really strong vibe. And so that's a standout. But I was listening to for the SMT5 soundtrack.
Yeah, it's abysmal even. It gives you this sense that like everything is not going to be okay. Like
Yeah,
for sure,
that might be the motto
for
for
sure.
SMT in general. Everything is not going to be okay.
No, that basically everything is not going to be okay. If you thought that it was, it's not. It doesn't matter. Nothing. There is no hope here. So yeah, that's what. But I mean, that's what you get with your apocalypse type, things. That's what you should get
Yes.
because, like, why would I? We can triumph in things like that, but it has to be a grueling journey to get there. Like, especially if we're in this end of days type of things. It's every man for himself. Like, hallucination from SMT, Vengeance, actually specifically. It's just it starts off no drums, just very ominous little just little sounds, and then it just turns into an abrasive in your face. Just
Mm.
it feels like chaos, but it sounds like order.
Ooh.
And it just keeps going and it keeps going and you just listen to it and it ends and you feel like you feel like you're lost. Like, what
Ooh.
am I supposed to do now? And it kind of gives you that sense like how you feel in game sometimes. Like you do get a points in the game where it's like I don't what am I'm stuck. Like and it makes you feel like there's no hope. That song makes you feel like there is no hope on the other side. So when
Ooh.
it ends, you're just left with this feeling of like emptiness. I love hallucinate. Yeah, I love that one a lot. And Sahorian Tao's theme, which was you just have these minor chords. A lot of people hear minor chords and think of something's out of tune or off key, but these keys belong together. You might think it's off key, but it's not off key. It's a melody, and these chord progressions keep going, and these these chord progressions give you this sense of tragedy
Mm.
with relief on the back end, like sprinkled in, or just this sense of like I'm unable to cope with what's going on in life. I need an out. And that out is a tragic out. And
Right.
it fits with Sahori's story as well. In order for her, she said thank you in the end because she was ultimately glad that she couldn't hurt nobody else.
Right.
So that's the relief that I speak of that's sprinkled in there. It's like, yeah, this is rough. It's tragic. But in the end, you're not going to hurt anybody anymore. And you're no longer hurting anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
it hurts me to do this to you. So it just that one did it for me. I love songs without drums.
Right.
It's just being weird because I'm a percussionist as well, but songs without drums that give you a feeling that there are drums just by keystrokes. Like sometimes you can hit a piano hard enough where it gives you a tap and you still get that note out of it. And it kind of feels like I used to argue with my band director all the time. I used to tell him like a piano is basically a percussion instrument because you use your hands, you strike like. But he used to hate that. I was really trolling him, but he used to hate that. Yeah, man, something more so on the lighter side. Chrono Trigger, Corridors of Time.
Iconic.
It's just the classic, bro. It's like it makes you feel like, all right, let me get the knapsack, sleeping bag check. We got sword in the sheath. magic wand in the pack pocket. Like we gearing up for this journey. Let's hop in the
Yes.
car and let's go. Like it gives you just that sense of adventure. Just makes you feel like you're about to get into something very exciting. You're about to go on this journey and see all of these wonders of the world,
Right.
or just the land that gives you just it's real journey music. It's real Trek music, man. You put it on and it's like I used to listen to it on the way to school. Like you put it on, like let's go, like or like I would skateboard to it, and it just makes you feel like let's go. Especially when we would just skate around trying to find spots to skate at, I would just like have it going, and you just makes me feel like I have purpose. It's one of those songs.
Okay. Okay. You got one more, but I have not heard anyone bring up the soundtrack before, so I definitely want to hear you.
Yeah, man. Legend of Dragoon. It doesn't really have a great soundtrack, to be honest. It's okay, but the world map
Yep.
song is like it's simplistic and it's really good. It makes you feel it doesn't even make you feel like anything that has to do with the game. It's just a really good song.
Right.
So it's one of those songs that you don't mind taking your time trying to figure out where you're going. Because when you open up this world map and the song is playing and it's like, yeah, let me sit here for a minute real quick, or let me go grab a snack and eat this snack real quick while I'm listening to the world map, or eat this food while I'm listening to this song, and then get back into it. But I love that song a lot. But Legend of Dragoon, it's a great game. I love the game, but the OST isn't the best. There's better OSTs out there, but it's definitely a song that I love because I've sampled it at least 3, 4 times.
No,
Yeah,
that
man.
there's no better love for a song when you know you were like, I'm gonna go sample it. I mean, that's how I feel because I be hating on Tales of soundtrack sometimes, but I be flipping some of those songs because I'm like,
Like,
the entire soundtrack may not be it, but this song right here,
yeah, bro. It's always one where it's just like, oh, I'm going to flip this. Like, oh, and then you listen to it again, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna sample it again. And then you listen to it maybe a third time. It's like I didn't even notice that part at the end. I'm gonna sample that.
yeah,
Like, yeah, man. I'm notorious for sampling the last 5 seconds of a song.
no,
Like,
that's a real. I mean, I think this is a good segue as we come to a close, is that for anyone who wants to find you and hear more about like your writing, but also as you've alluded to, you're a producer. One of the things that you and I originally connected on was about music.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And so where can they either find you on social media, where can they find your writing, and where can they find your music?
You can find me on Brainrot Veil at Brainrot Veil on Twitter. Yeah, I do a lot of trolling, but that's where you can find me. Or you can go to Brainrot at Brainrot, which is my it's tied to my blog
Right.
and stuff like that. My website is on that one as well in the description. So it's underneath. Actually, no, that is not it. It is not at Brainrot. It is actually underneath the rot. So at underneath the rot, that's where my um brand Twitter page is at. I don't do much posting there, but my website is there. I write stories. I'm trying to get into writing horror stories, so you can find my horror stories there. You can find my music at on Bandcamp at libramoon.bandcamp.com. Got some coming out on the 4th actually. So
Nice.
yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's usually where you can find me at.
Nice, nice. I want to just say thank you for making time for this, man. This was a great catch up, great way to
Nah,
talk.
man,
This,
for sure, man. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful. I'm excited. Hope I didn't ramble too much.
no, you're good. You're good. And for the ending of the podcast, for all you know, you guys can find me at the Wolves Den 25 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find Menu Combat on Twitter and Instagram. And then if you want me on TikTok, it'll be at the Wolves Den 25. And so we appreciate you making time for The Menu Combat, the podcast of JRPG fans who love to pause and customize their party. Keep changing the world.